Engineer Modupe Ajibola, US-based technology expert, is our guest this morning. He's also very interested in public affairs, political affairs. He's an analyst in that regard, and he's home to participate in the election as an observer. It's not possible for him to vote. He would have loved to, I'm sure, but where are you based? What state are you based in?
Texas.
You're in Texas, yes.
There.
You know, apart from the steaks that you people are eating, your giant steaks, you can't, you couldn't register from Texas. But, you know, as we
I have my NIN.
You have your NIN.
Yes.
That's one thing that nobody can deny any Nigerian.
You know, we can't, you know.
And so, well, what Modupe has been, talking about is what he thinks, should be the concern of the administration that follows that of PMB, President Muhammadu Buhari, and where things can be made a lot better. He's highlighted, he's talked about education, he's also talked about communication, especially communicating what is being done so that people know, and if people take it for granted that you will communicate with them effectively, when they don't hear anything, then they'll assume that it's because there's nothing going on. And so that is
I'm glad you brought it back home. Education, information, and then the last that I'll talk about mostly is infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big aspect of what we have now found the rest of the world.
Infrastructure, that's the one place where they're giving us some small credit, or in fact, more than small. No. Nobody can take the infrastructural development away from Nigeria. But you probably have something to say about that.
Exactly.
Okay, let me bring in Martins, who has called in from GBAGADA. And then when you hear his input, you'll take that. Sure. Good morning, Martins.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the young man there. He's actually a wonderful person.
Engineer Modupe Ajibola. Yeah.
Yes. But my reason of calling is to please seek for the support of the Nigerian media houses.
Okay.
In the case of the three governors from the northern states against the federal government on the issue of the old Naira notes and the new Naira notes. When the matter first came up, the Supreme Court gave an interim order that the old Naira notes should still be a legal tender pending the time this matter before them, the substantive suit, will be concluded. However, I realize that the way the Nigerian media houses are reporting the issue is quite different from what the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court said, pending the time this matter will be concluded, that old Naira note should continue to be a legal tender. That is, status quo ante bellum must be maintained. That is the pronouncement of the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Now,
I just wanted us to be accurate. Sorry, sir. I wanted us to be accurate. What the Supreme Court did is to have restrained the federal government and all its agencies.
That's where I'm coming.
Okay. Continue, sir. Continue, sir.
When the Supreme Court gave that order, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Federation came on Arise Television to inform the nation and the entire world that the federal government is complying with the order of the Supreme Court. That is the final lead. Once the spokesperson for the federal government on issue of law has said that the federal government is complying with that order of the Supreme Court, which says that the money will continue to be a legal tender pending the determination of the substantive suit, then the media should be able to report this very properly.
Okay.
And not be interpreting it in different ways and confusing the citizenry.
I hear what you're saying.
So,
indeed.
Please, I am pleading with the Nigerian press to please report this in accordance with the way it's supposed to be, so that the citizenry will understand and know their rights. Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Martins, for calling in and bringing up that particular point. And he does have a point, because depending on how many media sources that you read, you find that there are variations on how it is being reported, and also understandings. For instance, it is the Council of State that had suggested, that's the word, suggested to the central bank that if there was going to be a difficulty in providing sufficient quantity of Naira notes, then it might want to consider, it wasn't ordered, it might want to consider using the old notes alongside the new ones. Now, the president, the central bank governor, even the attorney general, nobody has come out and made a clear-cut statement as to where we are now. The one thing that has been said that's taken different interpretations, I think Emefiele, the governor of central bank, has said that there is no need to extend the expiry date that they had already established. In spite of the Supreme Court making its pronouncements, in spite of the Council of State making its suggestions.
Look,
and this is what is angering a lot of people.
Information.
The suffering continues.
Information dissemination. The media has a big role in it. The media, this man recognized it. The media should be doing a good job to, and when the media fails at reporting the thing accurately, you guys should also what? Be held accountable. This accountability is not just for government, it's for everybody. And when you're not, when there's no instruments to hold each other, I don't say they should come arrest you. I'm saying you guys should hold each other accountable and write redactions and do whatever you have to do. But if Nigerians are not doing this, the federal government cannot do anything for any one of us if we as citizens are not demanding this kinds of alignment.
Mazi OKOROAFOR, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Sayuri. Good morning, my brother in the studio.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we are happy to see people like you, at least from time to time. People like you coming to tell Nigerians what they're supposed to know because of our level of education. Yes, because it's good. That is sometimes when they finish their primary school, secondary school, university, the same village, the same town, they don't go outside. When somebody comes from outside and says the word, they treat them like things. So I thank my brother, please. You have gone outside, you have seen what is happening there, you are bringing the knowledge to Nigerians. I say to educate people within this environment to know exactly what they are supposed to know about them. Now, the issue is this. Election is around the corner. But what I want to find out from the federal government of Nigeria, as of yesterday, people that went to bank pushed them to central bank. And the same central bank pushed them back to bank. FHS run to east and west and come back. Now, where are we now?
Yes. Yes.
Central bank said by 17th. Now, Sayori, my brother in the studio, I will advise you that I will take what are you suggesting to Nigeria? Many people would like to go to their village, their local government to vote. Now, how would they transport themselves to the village? You see, I don't know how Nigerians listen.
Yes.
And the government officials. People are going to their village. People left their local government to the urban area to work in the state level, maybe on transfer or what is it. They want to go back to their village. So they resign there. How would they go? I don't know.
Yeah,
now, let me give you an example. Listen very well. Everybody should listen very well.
So
all right then.
In Tokyo.
Thank you for calling in, Mazi OKOROAFOR. Thank you very much, sir.
He's absolutely correct. You see, when I talked about infrastructure, most people think it's just buildings and stuff like that. It's also connectivity between networks of things that work together. AI is going to be a big part of it in the future. We have
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, we have to jump on that. But what this gentleman is talking about is what we said where, look, how can CBN have, I'm going to dive into it just a little bit from a technology side because I'm a technology guy. There's this thing we call risk assessment, right? Vulnerability in your ideas and your system. CBN should have, I don't know if they did, should have worked with this so-called local governments to have a risk assessment of this transition and have a backup plan and a redundancy system, a buffer, to say, hey, if something fails in the channel of what we're doing here, local government has some trade by barter power to allow people IOUs and stuff like that until such a time that things can be resolved.
I hear you. You know the frustrating thing, Mudupe, the frustrating thing to Nigerians is that what you just said, just about anybody with secondary school level of education would know it. And there are experts in the central bank. We have experts all over in this country, whether it is the Army, whether it is the Air Force, whether it is central bank, whether it is the MBA, we have experts. They know what you've just said, and yet at this late stage, they decided that this is the time to revive the whole long-standing plan that we want to be a cashless society. These few weeks to the election, it's a good time for us to start withdrawing currency. So people can't understand
I don't think
what is going
anyone
on.
will call this a success. I don't even think the folks that envisioned it
Well,
will
the
call it a
central
success.
bank governor is.
Well,
he did say
he-
that the situation, he was speaking to, I think, the diplomatic community, that the situation was calming down.
Yeah, so
it was reported like that.
So I'm sure that at some point he will take some kind of umbrage. It will take some kind of what's the word? He would take some kind of visibility study of what's really happening, and at some point he would
he has
speak
taken
accordingly.
it and he has said that the situation is calming
I
down.
think he still has
He's told
time.
us
He
that,
still
he's
has
told the
time.
public that
Let's
the
give him
situation
time.
is calming
Let's
down.
give him time. Look, I'm saying that because of benefit of doubt.
You're also being, diplomatic in your speech.
Yeah.
Cut them some slack.
Cut them
because
some-
I was cutting them some slack that there's no way you tell me that those guys in central bank don't know what they're doing. There's no way you tell me.
Yeah,
but there must be some other pressure for them
don't be
to
so
have messed
sure.
it
By
up
the
like
way,
this.
don't be so sure of that either.
Okay, I hear you.
There's incompetency in every system.
Okay.
So
I hear you.
They have to be able to weed that
It's
out
just
on
that
their side too. So
it's just that I would have been very surprised to. You're probably right. But
And
can you
since
imagine
nobody's
such a
being
specialist
scared-
place as the central bank? How can you have incompetency there?
just simple. When people don't begin to upgrade their knowledge, they don't expose themselves to several. There's so many ways in
Let me
competency.
take Elder Adebanjo calling in from. Good morning, Elder Adebanjo.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much. You see, let me just simply put this.
Yes.
We're talking about challenges before the next administration.
Yes.
Please, let's have strong institutions rather than strong individuals. When we
Okay.
have strong institutions rather than strong individuals, most of these things will fall into place. Where my brother came from the U.S., we have strong institution, not strong individual. And he mentioned something about loyalty. Let's forget about loyalty and do more on competency so that most of these things will quietly fall into place. Good morning.
Good morning.
Fantastic.
Short and sweet.
Look,
Short, sharp, and sweet.
that man summarized what we've been talking about here. Institutions, and I love the way he put it together, because the truth of it is that's what we're really talking about. But how can an institution be strong? Is the instrument is what I'm trying to get at. Because you see, you can't tell the government in Nigeria to just go do it. We are experienced in doing it. So we can lend our experience. The experience is literally technology. There's no way around it. You have to measure performance and everything you do before you can understand whether you're passing or failing a test. But if there's no measuring instruments, you're always going to consider yourself a pass.
Well, I hope either the presidential candidates themselves are listening to this, or their presidential campaign councils or representatives are listening to this, because that's what they need to hear. That's what they need to know.
I agree.
But also, Elder Adebanjo, who called in speaking about the dire need in Nigeria is for strong individuals rather than strong.
No, it says strong institutions.
Strong institutions rather than strong individuals.
This is very correct.
That's what commentators have been saying for ages.
The challenge,
it's not new.
I'll say one thing though. The challenge with that assessment, I believe in what he said, but I've seen a challenge with it. Just being on ground.
Yes.
It goes back to what we said about the indigenous population. There's so many people in the rural areas. This
is our way.
They're so ingrained in culture.
Yeah.
And we are so overexposed, for that matter, that we tend to build our mind, our policy, our ideology based on Western civilization.
Indeed.
And those folks here are saying, we don't even want most of those things. We just want our simple lives with some jobs, right? So there's a bridge that needs to be crossed.
The cashless
somehow.
society, for instance, very ideal. We understand it. But where we are at now, there are many people who don't use the banking system.
Yeah, there are.
There's no way you dodge it.
Oh, I've experienced that firsthand.
There's no way you dodge it. All those people are in a jam right now. And these are things that you would have thought about before going into this program, and that you wanted to go into it. Why weeks to the election is when you're starting? Why didn't you kick that?
But the
particular can down the road?
the pressure has to remain at the local government level. Look, you cannot scream at somebody miles away and have an impact. You just can't. They can't hear you. They can just switch off the TV and they're good to go. But you can scream at your local government until he starts screaming at who he
next
can
level.
scream out. And the screaming goes and up and up and up. So the screaming has to start at local government levels.
Okay. Mr. George, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for
And
calling.
good morning to your guest. I appreciate his exposure and very sound suggestions. But let me first of all totally agree with the man that talked about obeying Supreme Court order.
Yes.
Yes,
I think that
yes.
was Martins, if I'm not mistaken.
Martin, his observation is correct. But what he didn't know is that the media we have in Nigeria today are themselves part of the conflict. Many have taken positions in, political positions against what they should stand for as a check for the society, for the sake of the society.
Right.
So the way a media sees it is the way they are seeing it, the way their principals want them to see it. So you have to understand that one. The other thing I want to point out is the observation or the suggestion made by your speaker there on local governments. I think that Nigeria adopted a system that we are not ripe for. The executive presidency, our society is not ripe for it, but that is what we are practicing. Take the CBN case, for example. He talked about leadership not being able to drive processes. The central bank governor is an individual. And a court, the highest court of the land says, do one thing. And he said, I'm not going to do it. That's where the president should have come in and said, no, you must do the right thing. If that is not the case, then we will be having situations that we're having in the country today. That goes to also answer his question about airport or an infrastructure decaying and nobody is held accountable. That is one of the reasons why I am supporting Bola Tinubu. This is the first time we are going to experience a president that has done it before at a state level, where he holds people accountable, where there is monitoring. This man, when he was governor of Lagos State, I'm aware that he will take up his phone and call a mechanic to get a secondary opinion about what his commissioners are bringing to him. And they will always debate it. Not necessarily the way he had brought it, but when they debate it, they come to a consensus, and that is what is implemented. The implementation is done, and the checks were there. That is why Lagos State is still able to sustain that practice up to today. So this is the first time we are seeing somebody who will not be cocooned by people that do not seem to have the interest of the generality of Nigerians around him.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well said. Yeah. I'll say two things in response to that. Everything you said makes sense. You would never have me argue that Lagos is a great benchmark that Nigeria very well could leverage across the board. You will hear me argue, however, that, again, folks that are trying to lead the federal government just need to be very aware that there's a thing called social media, right? And that social media cannot be ignored for too long because it's growing and its influence is growing. And messages have to be communicated real time and people have to get ahead of it. Otherwise, narratives are misguided. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of misinformation about even records of folks. I've said that on this election, I'm very proud of Nigeria because we put some candidates on the table that I'm very proud of. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of the fact that we put an experienced candidate in running one of the fastest growing and sustainable cities in Nigeria on the table. Okay. And that is a beautiful thing. That means if we can even scale that across the board.
So the quality of the candidates
is
improving.
Yeah. Yes, it's improving. It's improving.
So that's a plus.
That's a plus.
Well, even though there's a lot more work to be done. Let me squeeze in our last caller, MUKHTAR, calling in from KANO. Good morning to you, sir.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yori. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for calling in.
I have an observation of three things.
Okay.
I have an observation of three things. One is that most of our leaders are not sincere to the nation.
Okay.
They say things that they never implement. They say things that they want to convince people to vote for them. But there is no sincerity in their own hearts. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, and the Naira redesign. You cannot do a single policy without consultations. Consultations should cut across the nation to hear the views of the people you govern. That's number two. Number three, my disappointment is that the Supreme Court should have done something to Mr. Emefiele, because that's the highest court. You cannot give directives to somebody and say he will not do it, and you allow him to go free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say next, I'd like to cover some aspects of that.
Because in closing now,
yeah,
please summarize.
So on the other side is the folks that capture the grievances of the youth. I keep calling it grievances, but the challenges the youths are facing. It's real. It's here in Nigeria, unemployment and things that is in other states. Maybe not as much as...
MUKHTAR spoke about insincerity, that people are not sincere.
Call it what you may. Well, there's this saying we have in America that perception is reality. If people can perceive something, it doesn't matter what the fact is. It becomes their reality.
And as you know, advertising leans on that very, very heavily.
Exactly. So you have to make sure that you manage perceptions correctly. That's the point I was going to make. On one side, perception, they need to manage it well, because when you hear a guy like one of the candidates, the way they talk, some people may wonder, are they even able to run something? But they've run instruments that have worked. But because perception is not managed, some people think blah. And on the other side, folks think because, if someone's capturing the imagination of people, you can't take that for granted. It's needed.
About perception, you're balancing the fact that when MUKHTAR in KANO says that insincerity, a lack of sincerity, Naira design, no consultation, and all of that, you're saying that, well, perception, maybe they didn't manage it. Maybe there needed to have been more information as to how this all came about. Is that?
You have to have information, but the information has to be consistent. It cannot be, and it has to be run through instruments, not people. You see, people cannot be trusted. You cannot be trusted. If we have a group of people that come around and say, hey, we have data constantly telling us the performance of what's going on with our city, right? We don't need to turn to our governor anymore. We don't need to turn to our local government, because we can go to the source of the information and check ourselves.
We've completely run out of time. And so that's a fine place to put it. I want to thank you very much, Modupe Ajibola, an engineer, US-based technology expert and political affairs analyst. Thank you very much, and hope you have a good time at home.
Thank you.